So this is the T-CAIREM Summer Research Program information session, just to make sure everyone's here for the right reasons. Today, we're going to talk about the T-CAIREM Summer Program. I'll introduce what it is, and we'll have a lot of time to take your questions, which I'm sure you have many. We also receive a number of questions, sort of frequently asked questions, so we'll go through those first. Those might answer a lot of your questions, and then we'll go to yours. So if we can just pull up the slides. And I want to just mention I'm joined here with Marianne So, who's the head of education on the T-CAIREM team, and Gemma Paulsell, who's one of the T-CAIREM education co-leads. And I'll introduce everybody else on T-CAIREM in a moment. So all of us will be responding to your queries as they come up. All right, next slide. So just a bit of background. Some of you may know T-CAIREM very well. Others, this might be your first introduction. The Center for AI Intelligence Research and Education in Medicine, known as T-CAIREM, is located at the University of Toronto. We are within the Faculty of Medicine. We are supported by a generous donation from the Tamardi faculty. And we were set up with a very important goal, that is to advance AI in medicine through multidisciplinary collaboration between relevant partners such as healthcare providers, statisticians, computer scientists, engineers, many others, as well as industry. We launched in 2020. It's hard to believe that it's already been 4 years, but it's been an amazing first 4 years. And I would say what really sets our mission apart is that we're really thinking about AI as a team sport. From the get-go, we've set up the AI T-CAIREM to be able to think in teams, think about being open to different disciplines that have to work together, and think about the healthcare context. Next slide. So this is our team and our leadership, and I'd like to just take a moment to introduce and orient you to the T-CAIREM structure and leadership. So first and foremost, Mohammed Mamdani is our director, a visionary in AI and healthcare, and has been the director since inception. We're also supported from Dr. Rita Kandel, who's the chair of laboratory medicine and pathobiology at the Tamardi Faculty of Medicine. And so we're really grateful to have that leadership. We sit in LMP in the Faculty of Medicine, and we've had tremendous support and impact in that location in medicine. So then we have these 3 different areas. So education, infrastructure, and research. And I'll just walk you through. First, on the research, we have Anna Goldenberg and Devin Singh, who are our research co-leads. They lead the strategic thinking around our research initiatives. We have many. I won't go through them all now, and I encourage you to go and learn a bit more about them. We have Mamatha Bhatt, who's our engagement and partnership lead, who thinks about and leads T-CAIREM's interaction with many, many other organizations, both in Toronto, across Canada, and around the world. We have an infrastructure team who thinks about how to safely and responsibly hold health data in a way that can support AI in medicine, and really amazing leadership by David Rottenberg and Benjamin Hayes-Kynes. And then finally, the education team. So that's who you're hearing from today. Myself, and I want to acknowledge that we have 2 learner co-leads, Abhishek Maturu and Gemma Paulsell, who I introduced, and of course, Marianne, who's an essential member of our team and an incredible force behind all the work we do. Next slide. So when we think about education at T-CAIREM, there's a lot of ways to conceptualize it, but for us, we often think about this Venn diagram, and I want to show it to you because, again, this is key to our summer research program. It was one of the first education programs that we launched. We absolutely love the impact that this program is having, and this was a lot of our thinking that went into it, which is there are many people and many types of expertise needed to advance AI in medicine. Of course, there are the applied clinical users. These are individuals, clinicians who work in health systems that are the ones that will ultimately be using AI as it gets more integrated into healthcare. And their focus may not be developing AI, but rather using it in a responsible and a safe way that advances the health of their patients and people that they care for. On the other bubble, we have our technical experts. Sometimes we call them AI methods innovators. Of course, really critical. These are the individuals that are leading cutting edge developments for AI in medicine. And we have many of those across the University of Toronto ecosystem. And then we have the other piece, which is around the responsible and ethical application of AI and how we actually implement. So even with the technology, even with significant advancements, there are risks to be managed, there's potential, there's liability, all kinds of aspects related to equity. And so some of our scholars are really focused on these. And of course, there are hybrids. So all this to say, the reason why I'm going through this is that we're looking for students in this program that might be in any one of or at the intersection of these particular buckets. And you'll see that with some of the projects that we've funded. So next slide. So now to the summer research program. It is an experiential learning opportunity for undergraduate and medical students in the field of AI and healthcare. And our goal is to expose students to careers in healthcare-related fields that leverage AI to improve clinical care and patient health. And that can happen through a number of ways. And again, I'm going to show you some of the projects we funded in the past to give you an idea. Next slide. So just a little bit on the structure of the program. So the program is a minimum of 10 weeks. Some students do extend it a bit. But it roughly starts in May and ends in August. And these are research-intensive positions with leading AI and clinician scholars, and they can come from across Canada. We'll talk a bit more about that in the Q&A. We have about 30 positions eligible for funding through our program. And some of the positions are in collaboration with specific programs, again, laboratory medicine and pathobiology. And you can see if you've looked at some of our prior students, the range of application areas just going up on our previous slide. So this is new in that we have two options to be part of this program. Because the program is funded by the University of Toronto, U of T faculty can participate in this program by either working with a U of T student, or faculty from universities other than U of T can work with a U of T student, or we can have U of T students work with other faculty from other universities. So essentially, either the supervisor or the student has to be affiliated with the University of Toronto, but we've had students from all across Canada working with scientists here at U of T. We've also had faculty from other Canadian universities supervising U of T students. The other piece of the program is there are professional development sessions and wraparound programming. So it's, of course, the large amount of your time will be focused on your experiential learning opportunity, but we have professional development sessions and we vary them. They're not some are more technical, some are more career focused. We have also a bit more intensive training at the beginning to get you set up. We have opportunities to see leading learners in the AI and medicine space. So we have a trainee rounds led by trainees across the Canadian landscape working. So you get a sense to see what's at the cutting edge from a trainee perspective. And then we have a conference at the end of the summer. And this is a conference that features you and your work. It's dedicated to highlighting and presenting your work. There is a great opportunity for networking, as well as profiling the research that you've done over the summer. Next slide, please. So now that you have a sense of the program, I'm just highlighting a few projects that we've had funded. There have been many because we are many years into this program, but you can have a sense here that some of the projects are, a bit more technically focused. Some are more on algorithm development. Some are more on the clinical deployment. Some are more on the ethics and equity aspects. Some are qualitative, some are quantitative. So really a wide range of topic areas. The key thing is that it is working in an area that's advancing AI in a healthcare context. And your supervisor will be well established in those particular areas. But I want to just make it clear that there's a pretty wide breadth of projects that we've had funded. Next slide. Okay, so now into the eligibility and some more details about the application process. So as I mentioned earlier, it's not a competition that's restricted to U of T students, but there does have to be a U of T connection either through the faculty or the students. This is a program for undergraduate students, and medical degrees are undergraduate, so that people pursuing medical degrees are eligible, as well as any other undergraduate program. And I want to mention we've had students from many different types of programs. We've had engineering, computer science, health sciences. All of these programs have had undergraduate students represented in the program. International students can also apply, but they do have to be enrolled in a particular program. And the stipend is very similar to sort of an NSERC student stipend. It's $7,200 for the 10 weeks. And that's a cost that's shared between T-CAIREM and the supervisor, which is why it's really important to make sure you have a supervisor lined up. And I'll talk a little bit more about this. Just one point again about the time between maybe finishing your graduate degree or starting. So again, the eligibility are any student enrolled at a Canadian university who's enrolled in either undergraduate education or a medical degree program, who will complete in May 2025, but not earlier, and enrolled in a graduate degree commencing September 2025. So that's the piece for people that are at the very end. They are eligible, as long as they're not starting their formal graduate training until September 2025. Okay, next slide. So this is new for supervisors this year. If you're a supervisor on the call wanting to know a little bit more. So every year supervisors are engaged in the program. Of course, they supervise the particular students, but we will also involve supervisors a bit more. And this is really important because this gives students from across those 30 different projects exposure to different supervisors in the area. And this can be in the form of either participating in some of our trainee rounds, coming to our check-in sessions. So what we do is we sort of have a nice solid start in May. We get a sense of people's projects. We have a check-in meeting in July, which just is an update and gives people feedback to move towards our final mini conference, which takes place in August. And so we will be, not only do students have to accept to be part of the program, but we will also have supervisors sign off to be committing to the program and contributing. It's not a long commitment, for example, one trainee round, or adjudicating in the final session, or perhaps speaking to our summer students. Those are the only commitments that would be required. Okay. So next is, how are these applications adjudicated? And probably many of you have these questions. Applications are evaluated by the Trainee Advancement and Development Committee, and these are the criteria we use. So I'll go through the criteria, just make some comments on it. So the first one is the research project has to be relevant to AI and health or healthcare. And this is really important because T-CAIREM is funded to advance AI and healthcare. So there are a lot of projects which might use AI, but aren't directly relevant to healthcare. So those would get a lower priority. So really making the case why this project is relevant to AI and health is really important. The second is the training environment. So we look at the training environment and make sure the student is set up for success. So when the student joins the training environment, what resources will they have access to? Who will be supporting their development? Are there other team members on the project? These are all factors which go into an application that would be more likely to fund if we know that the student's entering a supportive training environment. We also do look at the academic record. This is a competitive position, so we're looking for students that are really on a strong career for having impact in AI and medicine. That also goes with any accomplishments or attributes that are relevant to the application. So sometimes students might highlight that they had research experience before in a health settings. It may not be AI specific, and that's okay, but it does give us confidence that you have the ability to carry out a research project and have had research training, and you understand what that looks like. You know how to maybe present a poster of your work. All of those are relevant. On the other hand, you may not have research experience, but you have really deep AI experience. Well, that's also important to tell us, because we know that technically you'll be well suited to hit the ground running, but you're instead more building out the other aspects of your career. And of course, we look very closely at equity, diversity, and inclusion considerations, and trying to make sure that we are being representative of the diverse population that we serve, as well as any structural or systemic barriers that can hinder a person's ability to look competitive for this type of application. So all that's considered as part of our criteria. Next slide. So that's the background of the program. Hopefully you have a good sense of the purpose. There's a ton of detail on the website. Right now, I'm going to focus on going through some questions. And again, I'm going to go through questions that we have received, and then open it up to you to either input questions in the chat or raise your hand and ask questions. And myself or Marianne or Gemma will be happy to answer them. So let's go to the next slide, which are the start of our FAQs. So first question. I'm interested in this plus other research opportunities. Can you please add my email to future ongoing projects? Absolutely. If you haven't already signed up, T-CAIREM has a mailing list. We have a ton of really interesting opportunities. We have a speaker series that's open to everyone. Our trainee rounds are open. So that's the best place to get detailed information from T-CAIREM and many other offerings that we have. Next question is how many positions are available? So I did mention this, we have 30 positions available. So we will be funding a number of individuals. That number's gone up. We started small and we've been able to grow the program to 30. Are students from other medical schools, aside from U of T, eligible to apply? So yes, students from any Canadian university are eligible to apply. International students must have a valid Canadian permit allowing them to work in Canada, which if they're a registered student in the program, they can apply. And as I mentioned, they just have to find a supervisor from University of Toronto. And we've had many students like this in the program in the past. We had a question about whether this counts towards the research opportunities program. This summer research program is not formally part of U of T's ROP program. So if you're looking for those opportunities, this isn't one of the programs that happens to fit in. Okay, now this is the big question that we often get. How do I find a supervisor? So I want to just pause on here because this is different from some other programs. Some other programs, you just put your name in and they'll match you. Whereas here you have to find a supervisor in advance. And the good part about doing that is that there's a mutual agreement that this will align well. So it really saves a lot of time. With some of the programs we have to do the matching after can be quite timely and you're not sure. Here you're applying for a very specific program. And some of you will have connections on your own, or you may see work that people are doing, and you can email them and reach out and see if they would be willing to support your application. At this point, they're supporting it. And all the requirements are on the website. But for those that don't have any connection with anyone or don't know who to approach, we have a list of supervisors interested in taking summer research students on the T-CAIREM website. So you can search through those options and specifically reach out to those supervisors, let them know that you are interested in the position that was posted. Again, you can contact any supervisor that may not be on the list, but might be interested in taking summer students. And there's some eligibility around being a T-CAIREM member, but it's pretty straightforward. There usually isn't any barriers to supervisor eligibility. Okay, next slide. A couple other questions that have come up. What would the location of study be? And can we work remotely? Well, the location really depends on your supervisor. So the project may be located on a lab at the University of Toronto or one of our teaching hospitals, affiliate research centers. And there might be remote aspects to the work, but it really depends. Some of our projects involve going in, working in particular labs, and it depends on the statement. So to say remote is possible, but it's definitely dependent on the supervisor and the expectations of the supervisor. What background do we need to have a competitive application? Well, we get this question a lot. I touched on this a little bit in the valuation. The specific academic background really depends on the project that you're interested in doing. So definitely your background has to be amenable broadly to AI and healthcare. But if we see a background that's very, very different than the proposed project, that might cause us to question. So for example, if the project's all about a very technical project that clearly involves directly working with data and coding, we're going to be looking for some background and experience doing that. That being said, if it's a project that's a deployment focused, evaluation focused, or you're playing a specific role and there's other technical experts on the team, you just have to spell that out. So generally speaking, we're open to a very broad disciplinary backgrounds of students applying. And that's what we said at the beginning. That's what we think is going to make AI and healthcare successful. So do not feel that you have to have, like, we're only taking students with AI backgrounds. That being said, it should be clear that your skills and your background match the project that you're proposing, who else is on the team to complement those skills, and that generally, again, you have an interest in AI and healthcare. What are you looking for in a research candidate, and what opportunities would you provide them to excel in this program? So again, the reason why we want to make sure that we have that tight connection with your supervisor is you can have that conversation. So you apply with your supervisor. I'm applying with this particular supervisor. The reason why they're supporting your applications, we're assuming it's because you've discussed the skills and expertise that you have, and that's going to be a good fit for the project. And so that's the most important piece. So we can't say, overarching that's, this expertise and that expertise. We are taking the endorsement of the supervisor in the application as a sign that you have discussed the skills and expertise and you have them and they feel you'd be appropriate. We do evaluate the applications that come in because we may not be able to fund all applications. And it's those criteria we listed before. So the quality of the research project, its relevance to AI and healthcare. Sometimes we get really interesting projects, but they're not directly relevant to AI and healthcare. So that can happen. As I mentioned, the quality of the training environment, and you want to specifically mention if you have support or access. The academic record and any other notable accomplishments, previous research experience, any other activities that would make you competitive, as well as EDI considerations. And we're really looking for students that are going to participate regularly in the program. I think if you talk to prior students, certainly the project's a huge benefit. It's been career changing for many individuals, but also the networking, to be able to be connected with a community of up to 30 students who are also interested in AI and medicine. And those connections have now gone on to create new things. Now that we've had the program running for a few years, we've seen those, as well as interact with other supervisors. So obviously you'll get to know your supervisor, but you'll start to have an opportunity to see the others. And we bring in some amazing leaders to come and do the professional development session. So there's a lot more benefits than just the actual project. Okay. Last slide of my listed FAQs. Do you have to have previous work experience or previous research in AI to apply? So not necessarily. This is a summer undergrad program, and we started this program to build capacity in AI and medicine. We are not expecting you to come in with years and years of expertise. In fact, we're trying to shape your career trajectory with this opportunity. So yes, if you've had experience, definitely tell us. That helps us feel reassured that you'll have success. But this also might be your first opportunity. Many students have been through the program. This is their first opportunity working on an AI in medicine project, and that's totally fine. So I don't want you to feel shy about that. And actually, that's the point of having an undergrad focused program. It's not a program focused on people that are finished their training. It's people that are in their undergraduate degree looking for how this is going to shape their future career. Again, the specific expertise, what we're really looking for is alignment. So if the project and your specific responsibilities on that project don't seem to match your background, that might be a flag for us. But if we see very good alignment, we see positive trajectory and a willingness to learn in this space, then we're and then your supervisor, obviously by signing on, sees that, then we are happy about this. And as I mentioned, think about those Venn diagrams, about all the different spaces you can contribute to AI in medicine. What are the specific responsibilities of the students? So this will, again, depend on the student's project. Students are really encouraged to have that discussion, and it's very typical in AI and healthcare projects that you're part of a team. So again, this might be a little different than some other projects, undergraduate research projects where you're maybe off by yourself working on something. It's very typical, not always, but in many AI medicine projects, that there's a data engineer and there's a postdoc in the lab, and there's other individuals that are working on, because it does take lots of different aspects to make these elements work. So talk about the responsibilities and what specifically you're responsible for a student, as well as everyone else. And then from our perspective, we obviously require you to do your project and attend a minimum of 75% of the session. So we generally meet bi-weekly, and there's rounds, there's a midterm check-in, and of course a mini conference. And this can be about an hour to an hour and a half every 2 weeks. All of our sessions, most of them are virtual. There are some in-person opportunities, but we do understand that people are coming potentially from across Canada. So it's not an onerous time commitment, but we do require that you're attending at least 75% of these sessions. As I mentioned before, you get a lot out of these sessions. And so it's really important to be able to contribute. We've worked with students from lots of different institutions, so we can generally work with different scenarios in terms of how these projects are set up. And then lastly, I will say that everything I said today, well, first of all, we're recording the session, but definitely read through the details on the T-CAIREM website. There is, just go to the last slide. Oh, we do have one more slide. Sorry about that. We go to the last slide, the T-CAIREM website there, and you can see there'll be a QR code at the end. Oh, you're flipping to there. Perfect. We'll put this back up, but on our website, every detail that I talked about today, the forms, all the information about the projects can be found there. Okay, let's flip back. There's one more tranche of questions that I just want to make sure. Yes, what to include on your CV. So these are some other questions that came to us in advance. So I just want to make sure I go through them. So I mentioned before that we're definitely open to people that this might be their first experience, and we've had many students where that's been the case, and it's actually been very nice. So we often get the question, well, if I don't have experience, how do I actually look competitive in a project like this? So first of all, again, because you're being supported by your supervisor, that says a lot to us. And we know that there's someone that's willing to work with you. But you'll also want to include any notable accomplishments, any project that you've worked on, even if it's not AI, experience, leadership positions, all of those things are relevant, and you should include those. And we have often questions about the specific technology students expect to be working on. Well, that depends on the project. And sorry, I keep saying that because it really does depend. Again, in some projects, you will have very specific data environments that you're working in. And some, again, you might be working closely with someone who's working with the data. Maybe you're not working directly with the data. So it really depends. It's very typical when there is computational work that Python is often used, but it's not universal. There are many programs and many ways to do coding and AI. So just to say that it's going to depend, this is a great question for your supervisor. Would you say that you have to have coding languages to apply? This is a very common question. So again, the answer is not necessarily. It depends on what your specific responsibilities are in the project. And many of the projects you are the one involved in coding, training the algorithms. And other projects you might be involved in the deployment, you might be involved in the user-centered design of the algorithm, you might be doing a systematic review, you might be doing qualitative data to understand how the algorithms are used in practice. There's such a range of possibilities. So you don't necessarily need coding. We will provide you with resources on coding because we do know how important it is, but it's not necessarily required. It really depends on your project. And what are some of the learning opportunities? So students should select projects that really align with their research interests. Again, you might be open and you don't know yet, and that's fine. But if you're interested in maybe a particular clinical area, maybe you're interested in pediatrics, maybe you want to look for an opportunity in pediatrics. Maybe you don't have a clinical area you're interested, but you really want to work on imaging data. Maybe you look for a project in that space. And then some of you might be a bit more open, and that's great too. And you can see from the number of projects which one speaks to you. Again, I can't stress this enough. You have the opportunity to be exposed to not just your project, but up to 30 projects. You'll get a sense of how other labs in AI and medicine work. You'll get a chance to interact with some of the top AI scientists in the world who happen to be right here in Toronto. So there's a lot of learning and experience aside from your specific project. All right. Now the QR code. I've talked a lot. Hopefully some of the questions that came through on the FAQ were also your questions. But now I'm going to pause and see. I know there's been lots of questions on the chat, and thanks to the T-CAIREM team who've been doing an amazing job to answer the questions. So I'm just going to pause. Marianne and Gemma, anything you think I should go to? Otherwise, I'll just flip through the chat and see the ones maybe that aren't answered first.
I think, Laura, most of the questions Gemma and Zoriana have responded to. There might be one from Joshua.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take that one. And then I'm also going to kind of summarize through the questions that have been answered just for the recording for people that may not be able to see the chat.
Thank you.
So let me just start up in terms of competitiveness. So people ask sort of how many applications. So it varies from year to year, but generally we've received about 70 applications for 30 spots. The requirement of the supervisor and applying with your supervisor really narrows down and actually makes your chances actually quite good for getting funding in this program. So I think compared to many other summer programs, it's actually that matching done up front really does help. So in terms of how will applications be assessed on first come, first serve, well, we wait till all the applications come in. So there's a deadline and we don't look at anything before that deadline. So no consideration of applying before, as long as you're in by the deadline, and then we adjudicate every application the same way, aiming to be as fair as possible. We have a question here about I'm a university student at another university, and I have a T-CAIREM supervisor from my school. Can I apply? And the response, again, we've said this a few times, non-U of T students can apply, but you must work with a U of T supervisor. And vice versa, a U of T student can work with a non-U of T supervisor, but either the student or the faculty has to be from U of T. And that's because the funding and the entire administration of this program is from University of Toronto. Zorian, there was some specific questions about applicability. Some people from health sciences that maybe don't have research experience, can they apply? Absolutely. We've definitely had these students in the program. all undergraduate students with interest in AI and medicine can apply. There's a question about virtual, and I just mentioned that most of the professional development sessions are virtual. We do have largely in person for the midterm and the final. For the midterm, we have had a virtual option, so there'll be a small group of virtual that we can accommodate. So it's not impossible, although I'll say you get the best out of the experience if you're here. Definitely for the final session, again, we have made arrangements in very specific situations, but overall the final in conference is meant to be in person, but we can address like case by case issues as that comes up. There were some eligibility questions. So there's a question about, do students get access to the courses offered by T-CAIREM, Python or machine learning courses? So T-CAIREM offers professional development courses that are separate from our program. We do offer support, very brief, I'll say, support as part of the training. We have a little bit of a sort of boot camp session at the beginning to help people with the resources they need. But we don't, not the formal courses that are part, the multi-week courses, those are separate from the summer undergraduate program. So again, there is some training, some support offered, particularly around Python and some other aspects of clinical algorithms, but not a formal course. It'll just be part of the professional development and some sessions at the starting point. Some more questions about eligibility. I think those can be also sent in by email if you have specific questions about your eligibility. And then the points around all the supervisors and potential supervisor projects can be listed. The links are in the chat. So if you're looking for a potential supervisor, you don't have one yet, have a look there. I will also say, though, if you know someone working in the space that would be a great project fit and they're not listed there, you're more than welcome to apply. So perhaps you know a lab where there's some great work happening. You want to approach a supervisor and say, I'd be willing to come and work with you for a summer. It'll be funded as part of the stipulations of the co-funding of the program. Would you like to put in an application for me? So you can do that outside the formal list of projects that are there. There's a question about deadlines. Marianne, do you want to take that?
Sure, I will. It was bound to come up at some point, right? January the 17th, 2025. It is on our website, so if you do scan that QR code, you'll be brought to our webpage, and information's all included there. If you have any further questions, you can obviously email us at T-CAIREM, and that's also on the slide.
Great. Any other questions? I think we covered all the ones in the chat. I think most of the questions tend to be around eligibility, which is definitely very common. So if you have any other questions around your eligibility, you can let us know through email. I'll just pause to see if there's any other questions or comments.
And also one quick note, this is being recorded, so we hope to have the recording up at that website there, probably in the next day or two. So you can always come back and sort of re-listen to a portion of any part of the info session today.
Yep, and I encourage also everyone to check out the website. There's a lot of really great details there about the program. You can look at some of the past projects, which is also very helpful to see. Maybe you'll recognize some of the students and you can ask them about their experience in the program as well. So I'm not seeing any further questions. I'll just wait one more minute. Thank you to everyone for the great questions in the chat. It's really helpful. Often these questions are common across, so really appreciate the really good questions in the chat. And also, thank you so much for your interest in the program. I hope many of you will apply. I hope we've made it clear that we are looking for a wide range of applicants in different areas. There are lots of supervisors that are interested in students just like you. So, and if you're a supervisor interested in taking students, hopefully you learned a bit more about the program. So I'll end it there. Marianne, anything else you want to mention before we close it?
No, just if they have any questions, keep in mind the application deadline, and then we look forward to receiving them.
Gemma, any parting words from you from your experience last year?
No, it's a really great program. I think we have such a range of students and backgrounds. And so I think if you're on the Zoom call, you should definitely submit an application.
And Gemma was in the program and also now a leader at T-CAIREM. So just and MD PhD student. So a beautiful example of, you know, how this program can really shape a tremendous career.
Yeah, once you get involved with T-CAIREM, you may never leave. So it's a pretty cool organization.
Great. There's some great points in the chat. Okay, so we'll close it off here. As I mentioned, the recording is going to be available. The email is there for all of your questions, and we really look forward to seeing your applications and having your involvement at T-CAIREM.